I welcome Harry back to Unite Radio with myself, Jamie.Mccreedy. Harry, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Jamie. It's great to be back here again. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, of course, we're going to be talking about Tottenham, your beloved club. Let's begin with questions about the performances of last season in the Champions League, failing to qualify for the Champions League, Kane wanting to leave, fans turning against Levy, three managers. How do you sum up last season?
I can use one word to describe it. That's probably crazy. It was absolutely bonkers season and it had everything. In the end, it wasn't a great season because we ended up finishing eighth, which is the worst finish we've had in my lifetime. So that's 14 years outside of Europe, which you don't expect for a club like Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
Crazy, like you said, three different managers, one permanent, two interim. Lots of mistakes made. And lots of lessons kind of not learned, if you like. And so overall, I'm just glad the season's done, to be fair.
Well, the season is done, but maybe the same old Tottenham because Levy is wanting to stay, but fans wanted to leave. What's your opinions on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, there's been a lot of mistakes, especially when it comes to football decisions. And I believe that's why we've bought, Chief Football Officer in Scott Munn, who was meant to start the 1st of July. I haven't heard much about him. I don't know if that's good or bad, to be fair, but I think that's why he's been brought in. He's got to get he's brought in Ange. This has to work out. It cannot be like with Nuno. I don't think it will. I think it will work out. If he doesn't, he'll be under a lot of pressure. But one thing I will say is he doesn't help himself. Some things he does, like raising match ticket prices for next season. He really, really doesn't help himself. Sometimes he can be a little bit scapegoated, but you can't defend him because he does make some ridiculous mistakes when it comes to the football side of things.
I mean, you talk about the football side of things, but failing to not qualify for the Champions League, how much is that going to be an impact on the finances of the club?
Yeah, it's going to be massive, and that's I'm sure we'll get onto it as well with Harry Kane. If he doesn't sign that new deal, doesn't leave this summer, but leaves on a free next year, I think that will hurt the club financially as well. So not being inside Europe has positives and negatives to it. Obviously, the positive for Ange being, he has longer time in the week throughout the season to work with the players. There's no pressure in Europe. We won't be laughed at in Europe, which we have been over the last few years in the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League. So there is that to it, but in terms of the financial aspect, it is a problem with us needing probably, ideally, two centre-backs. We've been linked with the likes of Tapsoba, Van der Ven, who cost a lot of money. And for a club outside of Europe, it's difficult to afford that when you've got your star, your best player in Harry Kane potentially leaving for free next season. So it will hurt the club financially, for sure.
So if Kane was to stay or leave, are you still expected to win a trophy in the FA Cup, Carabao Cup?
But obviously, I've been on here before a couple of times and said it's been too long without a trophy, and I stick by that. We've got to win a trophy some way or the other. But my aims next season is just to make progress. Trophies to come with it, getting closer. To clubs like perhaps Arsenal, City. That hopefully that will come over time, but it's just about improving on it, focusing ourselves and improving on last season. Because as I said, last season it was unacceptable. I think everyone at the club knows that on the in and outside. That whatever the excuse last season was just not good enough. So we have to improve. New manager, we should be able to do that. Get some new players in, exciting players like Maddison as well, and keeping some really important players like Porro and Kulusevski signing permanently. And change your goalkeeper, things like that. Hopefully we will improve, but last season just wasn't acceptable. But hopefully we need to win a trophy. But my unpopular opinion is I don't think we can start that rebuild until Kane's gone. You get that money for Kane because you can't build a team around someone who's nearly 30. So you get the money for Kane and you improve on areas which needs improving, and that ultimately is the defence.
So can you rely on Troy Parrott and Dane Scarlett to step up then if Kane was to go, or would you expect them to buy a decent player?
Yeah, see, this is where my unpopular opinion comes, because I'm absolutely convinced you don't 60 million to sit on your bench. I think if you spend 60 million on a striker, your hopes is that he'll be in the first team in around the first team. I would be more than happy with Richarlison, and this is an unpopular opinion. I can partly understand why, but I just don't see the point. Let's say we sell Kane for around about 100 million this summer, and then we spend around about that money, or maybe even more, on a replacement. For me, I just don't see the point of it. I'd rather that money be spent on one or two quality centre-backs, because we all know we need to improve that. With the first pre-season game last week against West Ham, we scored 2 goals, which should be enough to beat West Ham or any team, really. Conceding 3 goals to lose 3-2. Defence is clear what let us down. Every goal West Ham scored was way too easy. It's knife and butter. It's so easy to cut through. So defence we need to improve. So I would not spend that money on a Kane replacement. But this is an unpopular opinion with many Spurs fans, understandably.
In positive and negative scenarios in the last season, what were some of the standout moments?
Some of the standout moments. Well, the one for me, especially because I was there myself, was that 1-0 win over Manchester City. That was, I believe, under Stellini when he stepped in when Conte had his gallbladder surgery.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a crazy season. And also Kane broke, the all-time Tottenham, record goal scorer. Past Jamie.Mccreedy, so that was an amazing achievement. It was a good feeling around the club at that time because Stellini stepped in. We're inside the top 4. We'd just beaten Manchester City. And like I said, Kane broke that record. He looked very, very happy. So that was the standout moment for me because it was a good feeling around the club at that time, but just didn't last long.
Yeah, that's what I had written down. That was an amazing moment for Tottenham and the club. But in a more negative scenario, when Stellini stepped in charge and lost 6-1 to Newcastle, and then they sacked him and got Ryan Mason, how does that feel?
It was humiliating, losing 6-1 to Newcastle, because it could have been more. That's the end of it. 5-0 down at half-time. The game was done. Reality is the game was done inside 20 minutes, and never, ever should a football match be done inside 20 minutes. You win and lose football matches, but to be humiliated when you're a top club against a club that not long ago, less than a couple of seasons ago, season where we're in a relegation battle, you just isn't acceptable. And for that reason, the club took action in sacking Stellini and appointing Ryan Mason. Again, there's positives and negatives to that. I can sit here and applaud the club because it's the right thing to do to take action after that defeat. It just isn't acceptable. But at the same time, Stellini should have never been appointed because you don't appoint someone's number 2 who's been working with Conte pretty much the whole of his career. He's not going to know any better. He's not going to change anything. It felt like Conte was kind of on gardening leave, if you like. So I don't kind of get the thinking behind that. You either got to stick with Conte or you get rid. I've never known Jamie in a situation in football where you get rid of the manager, you keep his whole backroom staff. It didn't seem right. And I think that showed because we were no different. It felt like Conte was here just without Conte's knowledge how to win, his mindset, that winning mentality. And that elite coach side to him. So that was a mistake for the club, but ultimately they took the right decision, and that was to sack Stellini.
Well, you say about the right decision to sack Stellini, but should Conte have even been sacked in the first place? Do you have trust in him that he could have taken you to the next level?
Yeah, you see, that's the big question. Because we were inside the top 4 when he was sacked. Obviously not very good results, and other teams had games in hand. There was that debate whether we've been inside it when other teams played that game in hand. If we kept with Conte, the reality is we never know. We can only guess. But we know as Spurs fans, the only reason he was sacked was because he called out the board, he called out the players, and I think absolutely everything he said was true. And a lot of us Spurs fans have known it. It's great to hear it from a manager, but at the same time, you expect to be sacked. It's a completely other thing. I think the club backed him to an extent in transfer windows, and I was really excited this season because we've gone on the back of finishing inside the top 4. Conte, about half a season. Only had the January transfer window. But if you think about it, Jamie, having Conte having the whole summer transfer window and a whole season ahead of him, I think is understandable, myself included, because I remember sitting here chatting to you about potentially challenging for the title. I think that was realistic at the time. I never expected us to win it, but I expected to hopefully be in the race. And up until the World Cup, it was kind of what we expected. Tottenham and Arsenal mainly, the City as well, up until the World Cup, really fighting for it, going for it and staying strong. I don't know what happened personally after the World Cup. Would I sacked Conte? No, he probably needed to go. But if you're going to sack him, then you don't replace him with his number 2. So for me, you keep Conte until the end of the season, then he goes. Or because obviously they had lots of problems around Paratici as well, and they kind of went together because they came together and they went together as well. or you bring in Ryan Mason. So it depends really. We never really know the answer, but it was a strange decision, like I said, with Stellini. I can understand it with Conte because calling out the board, especially, but also the players, almost throwing them under the bus. You're never going to kind of recover from that. But at the end of the day, we were inside the top four when he got sacked.
Can you recover from last season, though? Are you more confident this season about the last in terms of the signings that you've made, the departures that you've got rid of? Are you more confident that you can now challenge even further?
I am confident, and I'm trying not to get too confident because I've sat here lots of times going into a season really, really excited. There was positive signs in our first pre-season game, despite ending in a 3-2 defeat to West Ham. For people who didn't know, but there's positive signs. The football was back, which we've been missing for so long. Because it's nice to have a manager that wants to be here and plays the style that represents the football club that us fans enjoy. Because I don't think really last time I enjoyed watching my football club was probably 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been a long while before I've really enjoyed watching my club. So it's important to have that back. We create lots of chances, and like I said, we improve that defence and we improve as a team. If we can't afford it financially, then you sell Kane to do that. But I'm looking forward to next season under Ange. I think it'll work out. I wasn't sure about the appointment at the time, but I must admit I'm definitely growing. He's growing on me. Just some of his ways and the way he handles certain things like the media and the players that you see, clips you see, it's all looking good. Got a good bunch of players, a few good new signings, especially James Maddison. I think that's an elite signing for just 40 million as well. So for me, it's one of the signings of the window. It's definitely the bargain of the window when you've got Rice going for 105 million, Havertz going for 55, 60 million, Mount as well, huge price. That makes, I'd rather have Maddison out of any of them. And Maddison's the cheapest as well. So clever business from the club and a great signing. Now we need to focus on the defence until the end of the window. If we sign 2 centre-backs, one of pure quality and one to strengthen the squad, let's say, or maybe even 2 quality centre-backs, Van der Ven, Tapsoba, Van der Ven and Adebayo, or Van der Ven and Langley, then I believe that we can, at the end of the day, like I said to you, Jamie, the goal is to improve on last season. If we want to get straight back into maybe, I don't know, top 5, top 4, then we really need to look at addressing that defence, because our defensive problems will not go away, believe it or not, unless we improve that defence, because we've improved the midfield drastically. I think that's fine. Now it's time to get players out the door and prioritise the defence for the rest of the window. So good start, but still a long way to go in the transfer window.
We'll talk about the rest of the team later on, but you spoke about Maddison and what he can bring. But I want you to go in a bit more depth about what he really can bring to the team if Kane was to go in a replacement for Son. But also as well, how important is it that Kulusevski is signed on a permanent deal?
Yeah, firstly, I will start with Kulusevski because I think that's an absolutely fantastic signing. And see, this is where, for me, Daniel Levy doesn't get the credit he deserves. I think he gets criticism, I think the criticism he gets is justified at the best of times. But when he does things like this, in terms of being able to save money on the Kulusevski deal, less than 25 million in the end.
Is that a bargain?
When it was originally going to be. It's an absolute bargain for a player in this current market. Prices are sky high, as you've seen, ridiculously high.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think of that, they are. So to sign Kulusevski, a young player, talent, is exceptional for the price as well. Key player, I think, will be very important in years to come. Definitely, the future of the team for sure. Son's not getting any younger, Kane's not getting any younger. So you look to players like Kulusevski in their early 20s who have real quality, like I said. So it's a fantastic signing, and with James Maddison as well. Not only for 40 million, but you've got a real player there. But I'm sure he'll be hoping and doing everything he can to convince Kane to stay. Because the thought of a Maddison, Kane, Kulusevski and Son partnership next season is up there with the very best. We talked about at the time Fab Four for Liverpool or the BBC for Real Madrid. That, for me, isn't that far up there. We know what Kane brings. Son, when fit and up and firing, we see he can be a Golden Boot contender, win Golden Boots. Kulusevski, so much talent at such a young age. And, Maddison speaks for himself, what he's done for Leicester. A consistent performer. Obviously, his injury problems are a slight concern, but Maddison is an excellent sign. He brings a lot to the team: creativity, hard work, free kicks, set pieces in general. I like his attitude. I'm so happy that he's here. I think that's a fantastic signing from the club for the price as well. So Daniel Levy does deserve credit when he does comes to stuff like signing Kulusevski and Maddison for the price as well.
Yeah, talking about that kind of position, you seem to sign a lot of people who could play in these roles and not as much in the defence, which we'll talk about in a minute. But with Solomon, for people who don't really know, that is a bargain, a free deal, an absolute worldly of a player.
Yeah.
But where can he fit into your team if Son was to stay?
It's a great question. And firstly, I expect Son to stay after shutting down those Saudi Arabia links last week. Fair play to him, because lots of players have gone to Saudi Arabia and taken the money. I don't want to say too much about that, but fair play to Son for that. I think anyway, staying at Spurs, fighting for, I don't think he really has to fight for his position because his quality speaks for himself, but he knows he wasn't himself last season for lots of different reasons. Even he said he suffered from injury. Now he's had the surgery. I don't know why the club didn't let him have the surgery throughout the season. Honestly, I think that's a really, really poor decision, because they know he'll be released at some point. So it's just wrong. Because he wasn't an important player last season because of his injury problems. Only towards the end of last season did we really see bits of the Son we've known for years. So I think he'd be an important player again next season for sure, Jamie. I think it'd be really, really important. And like you say with Solomon as well, how does he fit into the team? I think, listen, you sign a player on a free, you can't really criticise that. I don't get whether fans criticise this because it's for free, it's risk-free. Ultimately improves the squad. Potential Brian Gill going out on loan or maybe permanently this summer. You've got obviously Danjuma gone back to Villarreal, now could be going to Everton. And you want that backup for Son just in case he leaves, in case he gets injured again, or just drops out of form, which he can do. That's normal for a player to drop out of form. We see it with the very best players in the world. Even if it's a short period, Haaland, Kane, even if it's a game or two, or a period of a game. So that's normal for Son. But for Solomon, he improves the squad instantly. He gets minutes in cup competitions. And I think he's a player in there for Fulham. He didn't play much, but when he did, he looked very, very good. So I think it's exciting signing. Someone who improves the squad, definitely. Clever business, if you ask me.
Well, the most clever business would be able to see a lot of players go in your team. They're not good enough, a lot of them. And it is mainly defence. Like you said, you conceded 63 goals last season. And Hugo Lloris was at the forefront of most of these errors that were made by the back line. So can you see him go? Would you want him to go? And who would be replacing him?
Yeah, I think it would only be a matter of time before Lloris goes. It doesn't surprise me or many other Spurs fans that Lloris was left at home in order to explore other transfer opportunities. Wasn't taken on that pre-season tour. I think that's expected. We bought that replacement in Vicario. The goalkeeper we wanted, not necessarily him, but we wanted the goalkeeper. We got that. The club delivered on that. Whether it's the right player or not, time will tell. Next season for sure. Yeah, Lloris, I expect to make a move. But you make a good point, Jamie. The defence last season, and it still is now, a massive issue. You say conceded 63 goals there. I mean, that's just unacceptable for a club that wants to be inside the top four. You just don't. And Lloris, far too many mistakes last season. Been a fantastic servant and captain to the club, but last season, just wasn't himself. And it's a shame that his career could be ending on that, half time, 5-0 down against Newcastle, and you got substituted for whatever reason. I don't know how much I believe it was injury. It's coincidental that 5-0 down, but it's a sad way to say goodbye. It's because you always want to end on a good note. Defence is a massive issue, and I'm disappointed that the club have failed to address that before the pre-season tour and said publicly he wanted at least one centre back before we go on that pre-season tour. And when you're not being funny, no disrespect to any of these players, but when you're working with me, you've got Christian Romero, but when you're having to play Rodon, Tanganga, Sanchez, Dyer, one of them next to Romero, you are going to concede goals, and that is the reality. We've improved, we've strengthened in the full-back positions. We're very strong, especially on the left side. Assuming no players leave at the moment, we have Reguilon, Sessegnon, though he's injured, Perisic and Davis, and Adoki, don't forget as well. On the right side, we have Porro, Emerson and Spencer. We've got strength and depth in both sides, but still the centre-back issue, it's a problem, and we need to offload. If we need to offload players before that, fine, because there's still lots of players we can offload. I'm happy to name them later on. to be able to maybe afford those centre backs, fine, but we need to bring a centre back in that should have been addressed before pre-season. It needed to be prioritised. Like all these signings on a free, Maddison, great, but the defence needs to be prioritised, and we know that because that is the one area to improve. And I'm willing to sell Kane. I'm willing to sell 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 players to be able to afford this. But I just think that is something that needs to be desperately addressed.
Well, you spoke about Perisic, but I heard he's going to be leaving on a free transfer. I heard that Levy wants to release him. Is that still the case?
Yeah, see, that's an interesting one, because I got the impression at the time that Perisic was well, from what I was told, a Conte signing, which makes sense. Worked with Conte before, his type of player, I think, mentality, the experience, the know-how, the knowledge of the game. He's still got it as well, by the way. Yeah, and he probably will leave if your players like Sessegnon, especially Perisic. You'll be looking for a move because you look at the fact that probably Adoki, Reguilon and Davis are all in front of you. If you think about it, that's 5 down that side. You don't go into a season with 5 left backs / left wing backs. That's just crazy.
Too much.
So Perisic is one of the players you want to see out of the door. Obviously, you want money for him ideally, but at the same time, we currently have a squad of 33 players. It's quite a few. We ideally need 32 going into the season. So players do need to go. Personally, I'd be looking to sell about 7 or 8, and that would include Perisic and include a lot of players on that left-hand side, because that would ultimately, if you have to rip up contracts because you can't sell players like Perisic, then fine. Yeah, it obviously didn't work out, but up until the World Cup, Perisic is fantastic. And it was a shame at the end of the day to lose him on a free because he could have made a bit of money for that. I think Levy would be disappointed in that. But up until the World Cup, he was used to good effect. Yeah, so we also said if we can sell him, great. If we can't, you've got to rip out contracts. It's the same with lots of defenders. If they won't go, I'm afraid you have to rip out the contracts for their own personal careers and also for the club.
In your opinion, Longley is set to rejoin. But as well, what was your opinions on him last season? And he's going to be signing for just under 5 million and getting over £200,000 a week. Is that worth it for a player who maybe didn't perform up to the high expectations?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, Jamie. Like I continue to state, the defence is a massive issue that needs to be addressed. It should have been addressed and it hasn't. That's a massive issue. Firstly, Lenglet, the latest I heard was that he joined Barcelona for training, but there's still obviously strong links to Tottenham for around 5 million mark, like you said there, Jamie. Obviously, the wage is very, very high as well.
Is that too high?
It probably is too high. If you're inside Europe, you don't worry about these things, Jamie.
Yeah.
But for a club that's finishing outside of Europe, obviously, I know all clubs are suffering from a major cost of living crisis and the backlog of COVID. But the fact we've gone through the new stadium and we're still paying that stadium debt, the club's going to be hurt financially. And things like losing Kane on a free could hurt even more. So I think that's the only thing that worries me, the financial aspect of these things. Lenglet, I would sign him to be a squad player, but you don't sign someone again for 200k a week to be a squad player. For me, Lenglet isn't what I call a quality centre back that I want to be partnering Romero. He had his opportunity last season, and would be a decent squad player, but Barcelona are letting him go for a reason. There's a reason for that. He doesn't get into Barcelona's team. For me, we need to be looking at someone. Ideally, we tap Sober, Adabari. They're great players. But for me, it's Van der Ven. I think he'll work off Romero fantastically. Like I said, 2 centre backs. Lots of fans are calling out for Tap Sober and Van der Ven, which would probably cost about 80, 90, maybe more million. Me, it's more realistic. I would go with Van der Ven, as the one, and the 2 being either Lenglet or Adebayo of Fulham, whatever turns out to be cheaper on the wage and the initial fee, as that squad player. But the priority, we've got to bring someone in to partner Romero, and I'm afraid Lenglet's not that player. And if Barca hold out for 200k a week, I would not go. If I was Spurs and Daniel Levy, I would not pursue and not continue through for Lenglet. I would look elsewhere because you've got lots of centre backs that we've been linked with, and lots of players that improve the team and the squad instantly. Lenglet, 5 million fee, fine, improves the squad, but not for 200k a week, not even for 100k a week. I'm afraid he's not that kind of player, squad player, sitting on your bench. Yeah, you've got to be earning less than that.
Exactly, but the players that have been there for quite a while, Eric Dyer and Sanchez, they're obviously not good enough. And you've spoken about signing other players. But what does Tabosa, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but what does Tabosa bring to the
Tapsoba.
team?
Yeah, I think Tapsoba will bring a lot. I think he's probably been honestly the most unrealistic centre back in terms of the price.
How much are they looking?
Yeah, at the moment, Jamie, the prices seem to go up and up because maybe because we're interested or people just generally don't know. But the valuation is between, at the moment, 45 million to 65 million, but it's leaning more towards that 60, 65 at the moment. So he's from what I can see, he's a good player. But the issue is he plays on the right-hand side of the defence. We know Romero plays there. Van der Ven is on the left side of the defence. And potentially, if Spurs play it right at the right time, could get him cheaper than Tapsoba. Because for me, Van der Ven's the right option. He's cheaper. Potentially, he's younger. He's quicker. And I think will complement Romero really, really well and work next to him well. So that's your centre-back that improves your team. That's your potentially, we're talking... I think Van der Ven, the maximum we pay is 50 million for him. I'm thinking 40s for Van der Ven, maybe even late 30s if we're lucky. And then you get a player like Langley or Tosin Adebayo to improve your squad. Glad you mentioned Sanchez. I'm sad his career didn't work out for him at Spurs. We had high hope when he joined from that massive fee from Ajax. It hasn't worked out, but he needs to be moved on now for his own career as well. So I wish him all the best. But he does need to go out the door.
Exactly. But talking about younger players in the team, such as Joe Rodden, again, he hasn't really taken off at Tottenham. Would you want to sell him to get the money, or would you rather send him out on loan to get the experience?
Yeah, see, I got asked that the other day. I mean, this is a great question. Obviously, at the moment, we as centre-backs, we have Romero, Rodon, Dyer, and Tanganga. And you could argue that the only natural centre-backs are Romero and Rodon because Davis, Dyer, and Tanganga have kind of been converted into centre-backs over time under different managers. But Joe Rodon, it's an interesting one because I liked him for Wales. He's a no-nonsense defender. He isn't of the best quality. I think Mourinho's reaction to the signing when he wanted Skriniar said it all. That's Daniel Levy-like for me, Daniel Levy to a T. He could be a very good squad player, potentially in cup competitions. It depends because what you don't want to do, Jamie, is the club have got two problems here, and it is the same for lots of clubs. And you can probably relate to times when Liverpool had centre back issues, with injuries.
Exactly.
What you don't want to do is let the likes of Tanganga, Dyer, Sanchez, etc. Rodon go, and then fail to bring that centre back in, or just bring one centre back in for the window.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you go, hang on, we only got one or two centre backs here. What are we going to do? And also you don't want an overload of defenders because we've already got 33 players. And generally, as a defence of a whole, lots of players, just not of good quality, and just a lot of players. And quickly, what I will mention is I like Chelsea being very clever what they've done with Saudi Arabia. They've made, I think, nearly 250 million now of sales, the majority of it going to Saudi Arabia. So that's very, very clever. What they've done with that, and the players they've offloaded to be able to not only afford players this summer, but also just bring players in for financial fair play, for the squad depth, for the amount that they can have. If you're Tottenham, you look to do similar or somewhere like that. Rodon, yes, I would probably sell him. Him and Sanchez would probably sell. Ange looks like he potentially likes Tanganga. So we need to, for me, Sanchez has got to be the first one who goes out the door. You bring Van der Ven in, and then you kind of look at what you've got then. But one thing's for sure, the defence needs lots needs changing. So sitting here realistically thinking about it right now, I'd probably get rid of 2 or 3 defenders and bring 2 in.
Exactly. And now going back up to the attack with Harry Kane, he emerged as the key goal-scoring threat, of course, for Tottenham last season. And second behind him was Son with 14, but he had a better shot accuracy than Kane. But Bentancur as well, having 6 goals. But then below them, there's not a lot of goals coming from anywhere else, including the defence, if you want big players to be scoring corners, etc. So with Maddison and maybe new recruits coming in, you would expect them to be targeting Kane's records even more, to be producing as much as he can.
Yeah, this is why I don't have a massive issue. Obviously, we want Harry Kane to stay, but this is why I don't have a massive issue with him leaving, because we're having players like Maddison come in. We're signing players permanently like Kulusevski, who obviously bring a lot, and an injury-free, fit Kulusevski and Son under the right manager in the right system score you goals, and they create you goals. And same with James Maddison, and an injury-free Basuma once again in the right position in the right system under the right manager, which looks like it could be Ange. Postecoglou, it can be creative. Bentancur comes back, around Christmas time, November, December, potentially even the new year. You don't know whether I'm a Liverpool team. He scores you goals. He's creative as your all-round midfielder. So I think the way Ange plays with the high fullbacks as well, the possibility of Porro, maybe Spence, and you got on the right and on the left, Adoki, maybe Reguilon, maybe even Perisic. Who we know they're going to score you goals, they're going to be creative. So I don't think scoring the goals is a problem with or without Harry Kane. It's the defence that's an issue. Last season, at times without Harry Kane or even with Kane, it was a problem. That's because of the way we played in the system we played. I think we'll score loads of goals next season. Like I said, it is just a defence, and the way we play, I expect we will play, the way Ange played for Celtic. Leaves you very, very open and vulnerable defensively. But you could get away with that with Celtic because they built around that defence and built it very, very strongly. And obviously, the Scottish League is completely different to the Premier League. And so, one thing will be interesting to see, Jamie, is if the fullbacks get caught out next year. But with Maddison, like you say, and Kulusevski, Son, etc., I think we've got goals in us. It's just, can we keep them out of the back of our own net?
Exactly. And we'll talk about Ange's records at other clubs a little bit later. But we can talk currently about the weaknesses, which we've spoken about, but more importantly, the strengths of last season and what the squad did produce that was maybe a bit unexpected.
Sorry, Jamie, you cut out there.
I'll ask it again, don't worry. So last
Sorry.
season, the strengths and weaknesses were there to be seen, maybe more the weakness side of the defense and the attack as well. But what are the strengths that you saw throughout last season and what could be maybe replicated under the new manager?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Focusing on the defence with strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, the weaknesses is as simple as conceding goals and just mistakes from lots of different players, Dyer, Sanchez. But things that we can work positively on. We've got a new goalkeeper, and obviously, goalkeeper is part of that defence. I think Hugo at times last season lacked that leadership, that character, and ultimately, sadly, the quality in the end. So I'm hoping new goal, that trust between the back line will be very, very important. Emerson as well, talk about a player he's spent his own money improving his defending. Left-hand side, we've got loads of options defensively. Romero as well, I think working with it can be absolutely world-class, like he is for Argentina, if he has the right defender next to him, which I think personally I continue to say is Van de Ven. For me, a player that you want to bring in now before the likes of City, United, Chelsea, other top clubs come in and go for him, or before the price tags increase after next season, because now's the time to go for him. But there's obviously more weaknesses because more negatives than positives, should I say, with the defence, especially based on last season. But there's positives, like I said, with individuals like Royale who are improving or could improve defensively.
Yes. Now let's move on to the performances against the top six sides, which are the sides that you want to be beating when you want to compete with these people and obviously clubs as well. Now, what do you make of it when you've only won 2 out of those games that you've played? You've lost 6. How does that feel?
Shocking, really, because Antonio Conte was here for the majority of last season, so I'm afraid I will put the majority of the blame on him. I get told that sometimes we slip up against small clubs, but we're Mourinho and Conte that they're big game managers, and we failed to turn up in either of the North London derbies, and we could have. Well, I think in the game we were certainly HG's the better word battered, but we were definitely turned over for sure, sadly, and the scoreline definitely could have been bigger. So that's one thing that's really, really disappointing. We're poor in big games, and the teams you obviously want to go up against. But not only that, Jamie, we failed to, step up to the situation against teams, especially Arsenal, Man United away earlier on in the season as well. We just failed to exist in the game, but also slipping up to teams, smaller teams down the bottom as well, such as Southampton, conceded 3 goals to Southampton and dropping 2 points. When you have 10 minutes to go, 3-1 up against Southampton, absolutely bossing the game, you expect to see that through. That was under Conte. So we not only have we failed to perform against some big clubs in derbies as well. North London derby, you can't get much bigger than that, for sure. And you're slipping up to teams that are getting relegated like Southampton and struggling against clubs like Leicester as well. So, poor all round last season, put it that way.
And these are the kind of games that you want to be winning, of course, when you're challenging for these kind of silverware that you wanted to challenge for last season. But with the injury concerns, with Bentancur still being injured until late August, how do you feel about this being such a key player for you last season, going into the season, maybe without one of your key players? How does that feel? And does that, decrease the morale of yourself?
It is a worry, but when you're signing James Maddison, Bissouma's coming back from injury, and when the Ndombele and Lo Celso, who we know have the quality, are coming back, it doesn't worry me so much, because all of a sudden last season we've gone from a midfield pair of Højbjerg and Skip, with only Sarr to turn to midfield, which could consist of players like Bissouma, Maddison, Ndombele, Lo Celso. You've got loads of different players that could be in there. So that is exciting for me, but Bentancur's a worry. Originally was going to be out until November, but I've been told he's very, very keen to recover quickly. And there's clips of him obviously working really hard in training to get back. I don't think he'll be back for the start of the new season. I don't think at all. I think that he'll be looking to get back for the derbies in and around October. I think that'll be the aim for him, a month before his expected return. We don't want to rush him back too quickly, because we want the player for the majority of the season. That's the aim. However long it takes him to come back, because we know what he brings to the table, offensively and defensively. Top player we're talking who just changes our midfield. So when they're all fit, a potential midfield, in my eyes, of Bentancur, Bissouma, and Maddison is exciting, and we haven't even mentioned the likes of Ndombele and Lo Celso. So it's very, very exciting in terms of midfield.
Talking about the two players, Ndombele and Lo Celso, they just come back from loan spells. Would you want to see them being sold, or would you want to see them being played?
Yeah, see, I'm glad that I've asked this. And with Ndombele, I've changed my mind several times on this, but where I stand at the moment, and where I've always, this is the bit I've always stood on, and I think majority of Spurs fans can agree with me on this, is with Ndombele, is he has the quality, he has the potential to be one of the best midfielders in the world, for sure. It's the effort he puts in, it's the attitude and commitment, but the signs we've seen in training, pre-season, just pre-season training in general, look good. There's a player in there, and I'd like to keep him because he brings a lot of quality to the team. Lo Celso, I've never seen what other fans have seen in him. A player I've always wanted to sell, but at the same time, he was exceptional against West Ham in midfield, completely bossing that midfield. Again, if it helps fund the centre backs, I'm happy to let one of them go. But if I had to choose Jamie between the two, I would sell Lo Celso and keep Ndombele.
Absolutely. Okay, Harry, let's jump straight in then to Ange Postecoglou and his arrival as Tottenham manager. In Japan, his win rate was just under 50%, and at Celtic, it was just under 75%. Now, can this be repeated at Spurs?
Well, we shall see. Time will tell. Obviously, we want to improve on last season. We want to win football matches. We want to, enjoy watching our football club again. I think that's kind of, stressed throughout this interview how important that is. We've gone from watching Nuno's football, Mourinho's football, Conte's football, which is negative and I'm afraid not enjoyable. You can tolerate when you're getting results. So not only do we want to get results and improve on last season, we want to enjoy watching our football club. And there were signs of that in the first friendly. You've got to remember, Ange Postecoglou came to Celtic, not really wanted by Celtic fans. They were annoyed at the board at the time. They'd just been through Neil Lennon, struggled, etc. And they didn't want him there against the appointment. And the end got to the point where they didn't want to let him go. Similar with Spurs, I think, in a way, to a degree, that anger at the board and Daniel Levy at the moment, that pressure, if you like. And not all fans have got around to the appointment, especially at the start with the hashtag trending no to Ange. So it's similar situation to that. So hopefully he can perform the miracles he did at Celtic. I don't expect him to come here and win the treble because it's a completely different standard, but just improving this football club and getting us back to where we belong. And ultimately that is in the top four back in the Champions League.
When you were in the Champions League last season, you didn't even fail to impress, really. Like, you didn't do well, but you did do quite well in managing to get out of the group. It was difficult to get out of that group in the end. You made it a bit difficult yourselves, but you did lose to AC Milan in the round of 16, obviously over the two legs. And how do you sum up the performance of last season in Europe?
Yeah, last season in Europe was actually quite shocking because I think we had the easiest group. It's a group you expect to top, which we did in the end, but we made it a real struggle. We're actually going out on the night when we were drawing and other results going on around us. We actually might have even been losing to Olympique Marseille at one point. I can't quite remember. I think probably were. I remember Højbjerg's goal at the end won it, which saw us go from third to first to top the group. So crazy game. Luck, 100%, so much luck in that game towards the end. If I remember correctly, I think we won the game something like 2-1. I think we were losing 1-0. Yes, we're losing 1-0, going out the group. Result around us, we were finishing, I think, third, maybe even fourth. So we done well to turn it around. But then, like you said, Jamie, it's a real struggle. Then we got to the AC Milan game. And listen, I don't necessarily expect to go through because you've got to remember, Milan got to that. Got to the semi-final in the end, so fair play to them for that. They're very defensively sound, like most Italian teams are. Very good, hard to break down. First leg, fairly happy. We lose 1-0. We're still in the tie going into the home second leg. I still fancied us to go through, and I don't mind us going out if we give everything. We leave everything on the pitch.
Yeah.
Against AC Milan, I was there myself, and I can tell you we did not. We let AC Milan take control in the first half and never, ever looked like scoring at all in that game. So it was a fair result, 0-0. We went out without a fight, and that is never acceptable, whether you're a big club or not. You want to fight, whether you're in a relegation battle, you fight for titles, fight for top four, or fight to get through to the next round of the Champions League, which we were. You expect to go out. If you're going to go out, you go out with a fight. And we went out without a fight. And that just isn't acceptable for a club like Tottenham Hotspur because that AC Milan defence had conceded 5 goals less than 14 days ago. So there was, it was clear that although they showed lots of team spirit on both legs, it was clear that they were vulnerable defensively. If pressure was put on them, there was no pressure at all. And that was very sad, if anything, to see because we could have, it was there for the taking. AC Milan were there for taking on the night. It's a disappointing season in Europe for sure. You can't excuse that. Even the group, we made it very, very difficult for ourselves.
And when you came on it last time, you did set out some expectations, and I'm sure the expectations were not met when you did get knocked out by the competition.
Yeah.
But now
this weren't met at all.
But continuing with the ambitions, last time you came on here, you did set out the ambitions for the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, etc. If you can remember, did the club meet the expectations that you set out?
The club pretty much failed at every point of expectation.
Yeah,
I've been criticised for some of my unrealistic expectations, like being the outsiders to challenge at the end of last season. But I stick by that because I think it was reasonable to have that. That feeling going into a new season when we just got inside the top 4. We'd done the unthinkable and beat Arsenal to Champions League football, which, bearing in mind when Conte took over, there was at least a 20-point gap, 20-point gap between Tottenham and Arsenal. And Mourinho couldn't do this. We all know Mourinho's, his career and reputation speaks for himself, whatever you think of him. He couldn't do it with Tottenham. He could only get us into Europa League, I think 6th in the end. And only drew on the last day against Palace. And Conte got us in top 4. New season with him, a whole transfer window. We'd spent around about 135 to 140 million. Some of that is including add-ons. We signed players like Richarlison, like Basuma, like Perisic. We got the goalkeeper we wanted. We signed young players like Spence, who were really exciting. We got Lenglet, potentially, the thought of him coming from Barcelona. There was a few exciting players in there. The squad had definitely been strengthened and been backed. I think that the recruitment was poor, Jamie, but the investment was there for Conte. The intent was there from Daniel Levy and the board. And up until the World Cup, like I said, when we were in the title race with Arsenal, it felt like up until the World Cup, it was really just Tottenham and Arsenal, if you remember, at the top. City were outsiders. because they don't often start well, and that was the case. They go into it, obviously, and we start to drop points after the World Cup. I'm not blaming the World Cup because you can't use that as an excuse. It's no different to just a long international break, really. It disrupts everyone's season, not just Tottenham. So we can't use that as an excuse. But yeah, expectations were not met last season. We failed, and last season's inexcusable. You can have a bad season, but for a club like Tottenham Hotspur, if you just about get in Europe, you just about get seventh, you can kind of accept that. And I'll be right now, since you go in, is what it is. We move on, going until next season. And although that's the case, just because we finished outside of Europe, it just isn't acceptable. It's hard to put that behind us. And we must improve on last season. We can't continue to fall. And Ange must be backed, and he not only backed, but he must be given lots of time, because we're talking about a bunch of players that Mourinho, Pochettino at the end, Nuno, Conte really struggled. Mason, Stellini as well struggled to really get a lot out of. And when they did, it was only for a short period of time. So clear patience is needed.
Absolutely, but the patience is running out with fans, with Daniel Levy as well. Now, that's a challenge, but do you think the team will still be backed even if Levy is still there?
It's a very good question, and I call for fans to be patient. And you must be whenever a new manager comes in. Look at, and what I will say to fans is, look at what Arsenal have done with Arteta. They could have easily got rid of him, but no, they stuck with him, they backed him, and they're so close to win the title last season. And as a Spurs fan, I can sit here and honestly go, I'm not laughing at Arsenal finishing second, because they massively overachieved. They overstepped any of the wildest expectations. So we can laugh at them for, I don't really like the word bottling in any contest, throwing it away, if you like, towards the end, because it was their own doing towards the end. But overall, it was a really, really successful season. Then they backed Arteta this season, signing players like Havertz, Timber, Rice, really spending the money, going big, and that's the way to do it. And I expect them to win the title this season. They stuck with Arteta. We've got fans like Troops, who was creating the Arteta out t-shirts, and they stuck with him. So that was the right decision. And it paid off so many times in relegation battles as well last season, with Forest sticking with Steve Cooper. And it didn't pay off for clubs like Leicester, clubs like Southampton, who changed their manager and Leeds, and went down because of it. So sticking with your manager is really, really important, especially a manager like Postecoglou, because these players have been used to this defensive low block style under Mourinho and Conte and Nuno and Stellini. And we saw under Ryan Mason, this is going to take months, if not years, I think, to shift, because it's going to be in the back of their mind and new players coming in. So we can't be, even if we're mid-table, worst comes to worst, mid-table by Christmas, we can't be in this conversation that he should be sacked. He must be given time. What he done at Celtic was fabulous. Obviously, it's the biggest job of his career. But he seems like he's ready for it, ready for the job. I like the guy, and I think with the right time, it needs a little bit of backing. I like what I've seen so far in the transfer window, and really just 2 centre-backs is all we need. One of real quality. The one can be just to improve the squad, and then just getting loads of players out the door. So actually, the club won't be spending any more money, really, than they kind of get back from selling players, if you know what I mean, Jamie. So because we need to get rid of about 8 players, but only need to bring in 2. So the easy bit's done. We've signed the creative player in Maddison. We've signed Solomon, so that covers the winger for a free. We've got the goalkeeper in Vicario, whatever you think of him. Although I wanted David Rea. We've got Vicario. Hopefully it work out. But I'm happy with the window so far. But we need time. But with your question regarding Daniel Levy, let's see if the Ange Postecoglou appointment works out, and let's see if we sign 2 centre-backs before the window shuts. Obviously, time is running out, and he does get a lot of criticism, which he deserves. But again, little things he does in the transfer window with certain players makes you think, hang on, why do fans want him gone? So it depends really, but hopefully we can be back where we want to be next season.
The thing with Tottenham fans is I do believe that Levy does back the club on numerous occasions, new stadium. They have spent a lot of money, but it's just the recruitment side of things that maybe Arsenal have got above Tottenham.
Absolutely. And the sad thing is that, we beat them to the top 4 under Conte. And look at the difference now. We're talking about a team last season.
1 year.
It was, in 1 year. And less than 1 year to fight for the title, and a team that can't even get in Europe. And if you look at the money spent, it's not that different. If anything, we spent a little bit more if you include add-ons. It's the money. The Arsenal, See, Jamie, what Arsenal do, they want a player, they go out and get him and pay the price. We've seen that with
Exactly.
Declan Rice.
Yeah.
You know, it
And I don't
hasn't
give
dragged
up.
on a window. But what Tottenham do with something like David Raya, I promise you, Tottenham know, as us fans do, that David Raya is the experience, the reliable, everything you want, English, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, again, Spurs fans disagree. I think in this current market, whether you agree with it or not, the price has been sky high. 40 million for David Raya. I think Brentford are more than reasonable to hold out for that 40 million. And personally, we don't pay it. We hopefully Vicario works out, but Arsenal don't do that. If Arsenal wanted David Raya and they didn't have Ramsey, they'd go out and pay that 40 million. They've seen it with Rice. If we were in the situation with Rice, he'd never come to Tottenham because of his situation with West Ham. But if we ever did something like that, we wouldn't. We'd go for the cheaper option. And although I'm really happy with Sam Maddison, if Leicester's in the Premier League, they would have charged like 60, 65 million, and we wouldn't have got the player. We would have ended up in someone like Alex Scott for the future. Nothing wrong with that, but that's just the way the club works. I hate to say it, but we're years behind Arsenal, and I like everything the way Arsenal do in terms of they stick with the manager, they back the manager, they give them time, and Arsenal board come under criticism from the fans because this is one thing where I do feel slightly sorry for Levy, but it's still his own doing. If the fans escalates on Twitter in the end that they wanted Stellini to go, he would take action. He needs to do what he thinks is best, because if the Arsenal board had listened, the chairman had listened to the Arsenal fans, Arteta would not be their manager right now. They wouldn't be in a title fight. But because the Arsenal board saw the potential in Arteta for the long term, if they backed him, they stuck with him, and it's paid off. Yes, they may not have won anything last season, but the revenue they would have created was huge, and they surpassed any expectation. From finishing fifth to going to second is a drastic improvement. Every area was better. And it was clear to see that they only need to upgrade, I think, in Xhaka's position. They've done that in Declan Rice. They've got someone else in Havertz. They've splashed the cash. It's the way to do it. We should have done that personally after we reached the Champions League final, but we didn't by anyone, which is massive loss. And you, as a Liverpool fan, Jamie, you can relate to this. You get to Champions League final for the first time under Klopp. You lose to Real Madrid. You go away. Klopp has the right mindset. Work hard. You improve in the transfer window. You come back and you win the Champions League. But the difference is with Tottenham, we don't have that expectations. Tottenham would have looked at it. Daniel Levy would have gone, fantastic achievement, once in a lifetime to get the Champions League final. Very, very grateful. Whereas Liverpool look at it, right? You've got the first time in Champions League final for ages. Let's improve next year. Let's go and win it. What do we need to go and win it? Klopp, what do you need? Centre back, Van Dijk, Alisson, right? We give you that, or whatever it is. Mane, how much do you need? And Liverpool go and do that. And I love clubs that do it. And I'm not asking us to spend like City and Chelsea, but we need to be careful how we spend. Some of the football decisions have been very, very poor, and Levy's got lack of making up to do. But one of my main problems with Levy is the communications between the fans is just non-existent. And at a time when he's under extreme pressure, we need to be hearing more of him. Not interviews that he's doing for Cambridge University behind our backs that isn't promoted by the clubs, and little things, Jamie, as well as that the increase in match ticket prices. I can understand major cost of living crisis. But we're talking an increase of 15, 20, and in some parts of the stadium, a whopping 22.5% in categories, which is during a cost of living crisis. But not only that, the football we've seen since 2019 had our worst finish as a football club for 14 years. When you've got texts coming through, emails coming through day and night from the club about season tickets, about tickets, that they're struggling, that people aren't buying the season tickets. For me, they've gone the wrong way about it. So little things like that, Jamie, really frustrate me.
The little things that you have got right in terms of set pieces, Perisic has been quite good at those. You've got 10 more than Arsenal last season. And, how has that played in an offensive and defensive style?
It's been fantastic. And that comes down to the set piece coach, Jan Vieira, I think it is. He's fantastic job since he's come in. We've seen that different technique. At the same time, we've been lacking that from corners. So that was clever from the club, that appointment. And that was one of our strengths. But only relegation teams really not being funny rely on set pieces. Apart from Kane's magic, Jamie, the only other time we scored was Kane magic or from a set piece. And it's quite sad, really. The top clubs relying on that. Perisic will go, we will lose that. We have James Maddison coming in. We don't score from free kicks, but we hopefully will have a better chance of doing so now because Maddison has that potential. For me, he's the closest one to Ward-Prowse at free kicks. Also, Alexander-Arnold as well, by the way. I'm sure you agree he's up there. If he's in the right spot for taking set pieces, he's done it for Liverpool and England. If he gets it right position, he scores. He's got that knack. It's great. So that was a strong area last season, but it faded out again towards the end of last season. So that's an area that we were stronger at in Arsenal. But again, a club that has the right mindset will go away and look, right, how can we improve that even more? How can we stay in front of Arsenal with that? How can we, we're in a fight, with Man United for top 4 or 5 next season. Man United, this is what they do from set pieces. How can we score more goals from set pieces? We don't look at it like that. We look at it, we scored more goals than Arsenal set pieces. Let's hope it's the same this season. It'll be continue what we're doing, or will be, don't worry about it. We've done what we wanted to do. Little things like that annoy me, but last season set pieces were good. We must obviously keep that up, but goals are going to come from plenty of other areas, hopefully as well. There's a lot to look forward to next season, in a way.
In a way as well, Kane leaving, you think that's quite a good deal for him to be going. But a question
question that
I wanted to ask is, do you think Kane would suit the German style of football in a physical and a technical perspective?
Well, it's an interesting one with Harry Kane. Right now, obviously, you're in a situation where you've got a new manager coming in. He's been here for 10 years now. You can't blame anyone in any department of work, of life, after 10 years wanting to try something new. That is completely normal. However well the company, the business, the football club, etc. is doing, I can completely understand that. And sadly, the club have let him down. Pochettino publicly called in 2019 for a rebuild for the future. He said that rebuild involves building a team around Harry Kane. And now we got to this point where Kane's 30 years old. You can't build a team around someone who's 30 and isn't willing to commit. I stick to what I say. No player is bigger than the club. If Kane wants to leave, fine. We get the right money for him. And I hope we do what West Ham do. We stick to the valuation of the player and we hold out for it. This is the first time in a long while where I'm going to say both Harry Kane and Bayern have got kind of like Levy tied up here. Levy's in trouble because, Kane, the potential of leaving on a free next season, that's a worry for him. And he won't want that to happen. So although Levy has the power to stop Kane from leaving by saying no to Bayern, Kane will just say, you won't let me go, I'll leave on a free next year, and that will hurt you financially. So Levy's in a bit of trouble here, under a lot of pressure. But personally, if we can get close to 100 million, and that's 100 million pounds, I know it's a lot for a 30-year-old with a year left, but you look at the quality of Kane, Jamie, absolutely. I'm sure you can agree, because he does it on an international and club basis, that he's worth that. And when you've got Rice going for 105 million and players going like the crazy price, Casado could be going for 100 million, for example, for Chelsea. That's just crazy money. And I don't agree with it, but you have a right to hold out for 100 million for Kane, who's still up there with, for me, one of the world's best. Even at his age, I can understand holding out on that. I hope we do that, but we mustn't let it drag on. Let's get it done. But I'm going to make a bold claim here. We cannot start this rebuild and look forward to next season, I'm afraid, until I think we sell Kane, we cash in on Kane, get that 100 million. People say that the budget should have been put aside for the centre-backs. Of course, ideally, but for a club that's finished outside of Europe, we haven't, believe it or not, got 150 million just sitting there willing to spend. And if we finish outside of Europe, it's going to be okay. We're not in that situation for lots of different reasons. So I can understand that in a way not being budgeted. However, it should be prioritised. So we get the Kane money in. And I don't think we need a replacement either. Jamie, I do not understand fans' logic saying take 100 million for Kane, then spend 150 million on someone like Vlasic. Then you just spent an extra 50 million and you're losing Kane. For me, someone who's not as good as Kane. So I'd rather spend that money, because I'm very happy with the front three of Son, Richarlison and Kulusevski. I think that scores you goals and still up there with the very best. Maybe we need a backup striker. Maybe I don't want to spend a lot of money on it. Spend the money on the defence. So I would cash in on Kane, because no player is bigger than Tottenham Hotspur or any football club. West Ham with fans said that was Rice, and I think they're spot on. That no player is bigger than the club. If Kane wants to leave, fine. I don't want a player here that's not willing to commit. I'm grateful for everything Harry's done. He has every right to force a move, absolutely. But we mustn't do Daniel Levy mustn't do what he does best and let it drag on till deadline day, because it will affect the start to our season like it did 2 years ago with our links to Manchester City. It will just cause so many problems. So we need to get it done. Decision needs to be made. For me, it's go or commit. When we get close to that 100 million, then I would cash in.
Absolutely. Now, you spoke about 100 million pounds for Kane, but do you think that money, the complete 100 million, will be spent on top of the money that you've already spent in the window? Or do you think that Levy will hold out and not spend as much?
Well, if Daniel Levy gets his way, it drags on until the deadline day.
Yeah.
He sells Kane on deadline night. Oh, it's too late to do anything with the money. And then people forget about it because it's months later. But what we must do is we must get it done before the season starts. It must be done by the weekend it starts. The weekend season starts 12th of August. We don't play till the 13th of August against Brentford on that Super Sunday, 2 p.m. But we need to get it done before the squad even think about travelling for the game, because it's just in the mindset. As a player, it's unsettling. As a club, it's unsettling. As the board, it just passes on that tension. We felt that as fans in the City game. It was very, very quiet on the first day of the season. It's not like that usually at Tottenham. There's a lot of tension on and off the pitch. So that must be done. And we must spend the money on improving the centre-backs. And I don't expect us... fans expect us to go and buy Van der Ven and Tapsoba and spend over 100 million, or just under 100 million. I don't expect that, but I do if we sell Harry Kane and offload 8 players. So I can't express... People think rebuild's just bringing players in. When I talk about a massive Tottenham Hotspur rebuild needed, I'm talking 8 or 9 players, which I'm happy to sit here and name, that need to go. They've been here too long. They're on high wage. They're affecting us financially. They're not offering anything on the pitch. Replacements can be bought in. So the club can make money from the rest of this transfer window by selling Kane and about 9 other players. And only bringing in 10 centre-backs. They could potentially, sitting here working it out, maybe slightly ambitious, but they could get 200 million or 150 from sales, including Kane this summer, and only spend about 50, 60. So you're already saving over 100 million. So that's the way I look at it. I can understand fans disagree with that, but obviously we mustn't let it drag on, Jamie, because it affects you going into the season, and we just mustn't let that happen again.
Yeah, so with Kane, staying with him, how did you personally feel, as well as how do you think other fans felt? I know you got a different opinion, but how do you think that you and the other fans around the club felt when the rumours started circulating that Kane wanted to leave?
Well, this summer?
Yeah.
Well, I've been saying throughout the season I believe Kane will stay because we have a new manager coming in, Postecoglou. He's the right style. I think he convinced Kane to stay because we all know Postecoglou's character, bubbly. He just seems to suit Kane. I think the system will suit Kane. But as soon as that buying links came in, within 24 hours, it escalated from personal terms potentially being agreed with Kane and a fee about 15 million away already. And they'd already put a bid in within 48 hours of the interest being leaked. So that worried me. And ever since then, I've been saying I think he's going to go. Because I said at the time, finishing outside of Europe is absolutely criminal. Not just for Tottenham Hotspur to finish outside of Europe, but for a player like Harry Kane, who, not being funny, should be winning titles and trophies every season. Yeah. I hate to say it, but he's not doing that just yet at Tottenham Hotspur, and he can't afford to wait 2 or 3 years for his career. Goes to Bayern Munich, he wins the Bundesliga. He competes for the Champions League. Fair play to him. I don't have a problem with that. I can't say if I'm Kane that I will leave because of my bias towards Tottenham, but you can understand after 10 years of winning absolutely nothing, being let down by the board, by the chairman, fans loving you, going abroad, winning a trophy, and maybe come back to Tottenham to finish your career. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a fantastic idea, but the Kane links worry me. I do think he'll be a Bayern player come 1st September. I think it will drag on, sadly, until the end of the window. Levy will be tied up. And then I think a couple of days before deadline day, he will go, right, I cannot have Kane leaving on a free. And I think Kane will go for about 92 million in the end.
Yeah, now, again, sticking with Kane, do you think there's any potential replacements that you haven't already got? So you've obviously spoken about Richarlison. I mean, he didn't have a great start to life at Tottenham, and he'll be looking to improve on this first season. But looking at other targets elsewhere at other clubs, what players would you want to see bought in?
I wouldn't want to see any replacement brought in. Like I said, the remaining of the window, if you said to me, we just signed Van der Ven and we signed one other centre-back to improve the squad, absolutely fine, as long as we get rid of players outside the door. People talk about we need Vlasic, we need this, we need that. I just don't see why you spend 150 million on a striker. You end up spending more than you get in for Kane. Surely you'd rather keep Kane and take the risk of losing him for a free. But I can understand Richardson's got 1 goal last season, suffered from injury problems. I can understand a little bit of concern. But for me, you do not spend 60 million on a striker to sit on your bench. You don't spend 60 million on a player to sit on your bench. Arsenal will be saying that with Havertz, but for a couple like Tottenham Hotspur, for us, 60 million is just over the budget we usually pay for. So I was very surprised when we paid that. If we were, never did Daniel Levy wouldn't have allowed it if he was going to be a squad player. He would have been told that he'd be in the first team some way or the other, and he can play multiple positions. So, and I'm convinced that he can step up. He's done it for Everton, scoring 10 or 15 goals in the team down the bottom. So why can't he do it from Tottenham with excellent service from the likes of Benson, Basuma and Maddison now? Because Seskin Son assisting him, I think would be completely fine. It's defensively that is the issue, and it continues to be because the club have failed to address it before pre-season.
Yes. Now, going back to Levy and his impact on the fans, how has that kind of evolved over the years, and what sort of impact have the fans had over a perception of him?
Well, there's been mistake after mistake, really, and I think the most pressure on Daniel Levy was towards the end of that last season. Around where Stellini was at that kind of period just after the Newcastle game. As simple things as spamming Levy out on the Spurs replies to every single tweet. We're talking not a few, which it used to be half a dozen. We're talking about 500, 600 replies, every tweet just dedicated to that. It's clear, and that affects the club being tagged in everything. People turning up to protest, etc., not turning up at all. Chanting inside the stadium, like I remember away to Fulham, even under Conte. First time to be loud, heard and clear for about 15 minutes solid on TV. So there's that pressure there, and I can understand that from the fans because you've had 2 world-class managers, or whether they're world-class or not, they're both proven winners, we can agree, in Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, who failed to win at Tottenham. And that's saying something because they will leave Tottenham. Mourinho's left Tottenham, won at Roma, won the Conference League. And I'm sure Conte will do the same wherever he goes. It seems with every player. I think fans have kind of recognised that. So Levy needs that pressure on him. But at the same time, we've appointed, I think, the right manager in Postecoglou. And time will tell. If we address the centre-back issue, and for me, selling Kane so he doesn't go on a free, I think would be okay. But obviously, Levy's biggest concern is Harry Kane because lots of fans will escalate if Kane leaves this summer. And not replacements brought in, I'll be completely fine. But lots of fans I know don't like that. So there's still pressure on Daniel Levy, but not as much as there was 2-3 months ago.
But if Levy was to stay at the club, and he was like, if we continue this spree of spending, which he has done, whether fans like to hear it or not, he has spent the money. Yeah. Now, what are the long-term concerns that the fans would have if Levy was to stay?
The long-term concerns will be that he will poke his nose in and his finger in last minute on deadline day, which he tends to do. I love what he's done for the business side of things. I think it must be talked about from the concerts, which generates revenue. We're talking about a club outside of Europe that's going to be struggling financially with a new stadium, etc. I think fantastic. Some of the deals they come up with, the 15-year partnership with F1, that's incredible. That's locked in for 15 years. That's really, really cleverly go-karting track, loads of different events. It's fantastic. They've locked all these things in, and it helps the club in so many different ways. But when it comes to the football side of things, him himself, personally, I don't think he knows what he's doing. And hopefully he can step away from it now and step out the spotlight and make the business decisions. And that wouldn't be a problem. But obviously long-term effects, Jamie, will be that Postecoglou gets to Christmas, Postecoglou will be sacked and we complete the cycle again. Or Postecoglou will be here, same amount of time as Poch, 4 or 5 years, have a bad start to the season and be sacked by November. And we repeat the cycle again. We go back to someone like Mourinho, maybe this time be Enrique or Nagelsmann. The same thing happens. And the cycle's been going for a long while, but hopefully it's broken with the appointment of Ange Postecoglou. So although we've got a lot to be looking forward to next season, in the back of lots of Spurs fans' mind, including myself, will be Daniel Levy is still the same person and could still, he's like with some deals, he could mess it up, he could have his finger and he could do like I said with the increase in match ticket prices. That is not the right thing to do, And at a time where you need to get fans on side after finishing outside of Europe, having the worst season we've had in 14 years, worst finish, failing everywhere from the FA Cup to the League Cup to the Champions League, disappointment everywhere, absolute failure. Increasing match ticket prices is not bringing fans on side at all. So little things like that, will worry fans for the long term.
For you personally, though, do you have any idea of who you'd want to have after Levy, the Qataris, anyone in mind that you'd like to have?
Obviously, I'd love to sit here and go, I'd love Qatari money. I'd love us to win leagues. That would obviously be the ideal world. But you've got to understand that the morals that comes with it, and that's why I congratulate players like Son who've turned down the money for Saudi Arabia and thought about their own morals, their own career, their families, and haven't put themselves in their back pocket first. I don't want to get into that whole discussion. But obviously, you have got to bear that side of it. I think with Newcastle, what they're doing with their owners, they're doing it the right way, calmly, sensibly. Obviously, you've got there's rumours that now the Glazers might not sell or may not sell as quick as possible, and perhaps they look to Qataris that the good group will look to buy Tottenham, because at the end of the day, unlike Man United, we've got a new stadium, a new training ground. The infrastructure is there. That's the word. The infrastructure's there, and we're probably closer to Man United, and less money would have to be spent as well to buy Tottenham. So they'd be saving themselves money, going to Tottenham. So I haven't really thought about Daniel Levy, but I hate to say it, but I think Daniel Levy is here for a long, long while to stay. Whether that's just as maybe just step back in the board. But remember the amount he owns shares at Tottenham. I think he's here to stay for a while, I'm afraid.
Okay, so now we're going to do some quick 5 questions about who's going to win the upcoming, season awards, and then we're going to get into talks about what you're doing personally on personal note as well. So let's start off with the Champions League. Who can you see winning the Champions League?
Oh, this is probably the only one I haven't thought about yet. Next year's interesting. We got lots of teams in it. Obviously, I think we're all watching out for how Newcastle do.
Yeah.
Personally, unpopular opinion, I don't see them getting out the group. I think they win a game or two at St James's Park, but I think they really struggle away from home, and they finish about third in the group. So they don't be a contender, but they could find a run in. A bit exciting times Newcastle, by the way. Other clubs, Kane goes to Bayern are some contenders. PSG have always wanted to win it. I just can't see them doing it without Messi, potentially Mbappe and Neymar as well. Who knows? But honestly, who do I see winning it? I'm going to go Bayern Munich. I think that they get closer to it. It'd be between probably Bayern and City. I think Bayern City final. Excuse me. Yes, I'm going with Bayern to win it. I think they'll have it with Harry Kane. I think that'll be the difference. Bayern fans will be very happy to hear that.
Okay, so then what about the Europa League?
Europa League, I worry about West Ham because I said they won't win the Conference League. They will, so I don't want to sit here and say that. I think they get far. I hate to say it, but I actually do think West Ham will win it. I've got a feeling they've done it with the Conference League. They found a way to do it. They prioritise Europe, and I sadly think they'll win it. Okay,
now the FA Cup. Who's going to win that?
I'm going to make a bold claim here with Tottenham. Tottenham will win the FA Cup.
Really? Yeah. With Ange Postecoglou in charge or Ryan Mason?
I think so. No, I think it'll be Postecoglou. I think he does it. He takes cup competition seriously. I think we'll win it.
Okay, that's nice. What about in the Premier League then? Do you see Tottenham challenging for that or not?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think we'll finish 5th. By the way, I think Arsenal win a title. I think they've improved. They brought Havertz, for me, doesn't affect Arsenal's team. I think he's personally overrated. But Declan Rice, what a signing. Yes, the money. West Ham probably got the better deal, but at the end of the day, Arsenal got the player. And he's improvement on Xhaka. And the only difference was, the only problem was Xhaka. I think the only reason he didn't win the title last season, I hate to pick out an individual, but I think his position. So I think Arsenal win the title. I really think they will. Okay,
we're now going to go to the Community Shield really quickly, and then we can talk about what you're doing. Who's going to win that, City or Arsenal?
I'll go Manchester City. I think they win that.
Of course, the favourites. Now, thank you very much for talking to me today about Tottenham and the Premier League. But now we're going to talk about what you're doing on a personal note. So what have you been doing?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot. I've obviously got my yeah, definitely. I've got my own channel, obviously, Scarfe Spurs. I brought back the weekly live shows every Monday, 8 p.m.
Yeah,
which has been very, very successful. And obviously doing a lot at the moment around autism, neurodiversity, being an advocate for autism, just creating loads of content really. And the channel's gone from strength to strength. So past that 1K. Yes, the channel's doing excellent. Which is a good time for me. And I've been on lots of different podcasts, so it's going really, really well at the moment. And I'm just grateful for all the support. And massive thank you, Jamie, for having me on once again as well. I always love coming on. So yeah, massive thank you for this.
Certainly won't be the last time you'll be on, that's for sure.
No, that's great to hear. Can't wait.
Now, let's talk about your personal ambitions. So what you're currently doing now is absolutely amazing. But looking in the long-term future, what's the ambitions?
Wow, good question. I'm someone who likes to aim big. I'm someone who loves to speak in front of camera, loves to be podcast, create my own. I co-host one in Parkland podcast about Tottenham. I'm very, very keen to get on radio, to get on shows, get on TV.
Absolutely.
I'd love to be working for someone like Sky, what is now TNT Sports, someone like BBC. I obviously love to some route into media, being a Tottenham journalist or just a football journalist. So,
Yeah,
the amazing job that Michael Bridge does. Admire him massively what he does. You look at the likes of Alistair Gold. I love what they all do. So for me, being a journalist, being on TV, reporting, talking football, so many things that I love. I love being in front of camera. I love talking to people. I love football. I love Tottenham. So that'd be great. So I'd like to aim big. So hopefully on TV one day, that is definitely the aim.
Absolutely amazing. Now, thank you very much, Harry, for joining me. Any last words?
No, just massive thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you for this opportunity once again, Jamie. Really, really, and great luck. Good luck with your show on Unite Radio. Again, talk about my channel going from strength to strength. Your show's gone from strength to strength. I think when you started. I mean, we talked about it when you first started the show, if you remember, before it had even gone underway. And I know how popular your shows are. Some of the great people you've had on. I try my best to listen in when I can, and I really, really enjoy them, and it improves. Like my channel has over time, over the months. So yeah, keep up the great work, Jamie. So really, really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Harry. Really kind words, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah, take care. Cheers, Jamie.
You too. See you soon.